Hey, Coach. I think we didn't get a chance to ask you this last night. During the broadcast, they said that you guys had reached an agreement um, to release Randy Gregory. Did you ever find out why he never showed up?
I'll never find out, but I wish him the best, and we'll move on from there. Can't miss what you never had.
Can you talk about your tackle position in terms of like its depth? How concerned are you at this point? And just the job Elijah Klein did, does that help alleviate some of that?
With injuries, with Schoolie down, we had to move some people around. It showed depth, people willing to go out there, but obviously that's a key position. You got to put in a lot of practice to play out there, and
Right.
we didn't have a lot of practice at that. But Schoolie hopefully be back week one, which will alleviate some of the problems there. Other than that, there's a lack of depth there. But when you cut down to 53, you're always going to have a swing tackle to play, and we're counting on Schoolie to do that.
Thanks.
Greg Allman.
Hey, Coach, just want to ask you about your depth at safety. I saw Kevin Merriweather went out. Wanted to get a check on him, and also just are you worried about the overall depth at safety you have right now?
No, not right now because Tyke is still a safety and he can still play safety. So we still got depth there with Tyke. We still got depth there with Izzy, who didn't play in the ball game as well. So we got enough guys. We got about five guys that can play safety that didn't play it last night, but will be an emergency in the games can play it.
Scott Reynolds.
Coach, last year in the preseason, you named Baker Mayfield your starting quarterback after the second preseason game to get him ready to go for the regular season. The center position right now, we continue to see Robert Hainsey and Graham Barton rotate in there and getting some series. Are you ready to make the call for the starting center spot right now to get that person, whoever it is, ready for that third preseason game to start with Baker Mayfield and get ready for the season?
Well, they both been taking reps. I have my own opinions on it. We're gonna meet as a staff this afternoon, and we'll have a decision, but it doesn't have to be made right now. But we're pretty sure we know where we're going.
Thank you, Coach.
JC Allen.
Morning, Coach. You wanted to get a look at some of those backup defensive tackles there, defensive linemen in Lual Uguak, Ernest Brown, and then CJ Brewer. Did any of those guys kind of raise the bar and kind of show you what you were looking for?
I don't think anyone separated themselves last night. I thought all of them were just fair, if anything, fair to Midland, and we got to make a decision down there with a couple guys, and that's going to be important. And this looks like it's going to come down to the last game.
And as far as the depth at safety, you mentioned you obviously have Tyke Smith, but Tavier played a lot there last night. Marcus Banks, Wisdom. I think those three led the defense in snaps in the defensive backfield. Has any of those guys kind of separated themselves or shown you something that you really like?
They all flash, but they got to be more consistent. Got to be more vocal. Got to be more consistent.
Jenna Lee.
Hey, Coach. You had said about Randy Gregory, you can't miss what you don't have. Obviously, you also have had some injuries. Guys a little banged up at outside linebacker. So, with what you saw last night, with Jose Ramirez getting the hat trick, uh, do you feel like there is enough depth in that room, to where you won't need to seek any outside help?
The outside backer position on defense probably has the most depth out of any position over there. So we're very comfortable with the guys we have that's playing and that's backing them up right now, and guys that could possibly make the team.
And with Jose's performance last night, has he earned the right to see some snaps like this week, I should say, against tougher competition, or is that something you're hoping to see that he'll get, some opportunities against some tougher competition?
Competition is competition. He had the hat trick. There's some little things he's got to clean up, just like all of them have to clean up. I plan on playing the starters in this game, so he'll see some time definitely, and we'll kind of go from there.
Rick Stroud.
Coach, I assume you felt like Jake Camarda punted much better. And that being said, would you consider then maybe bringing in some competition for Chase McLaughlin?
It's a little late for competition. Chase has been pretty consistent, so we'll clean up what we need to clean up, and he'll be better going forward.
And then Cameron Johnson dressed, but he didn't play in the game. How close is he to being able to play? Is this a possibility this week?
I'm hoping to see him this week. He practiced with the red jersey last week, but he wasn't cleared. He did pregame, so hopefully with a couple more days rest, he's able to compete this week. We really like to see him.
Thanks, Coach.
Greg Allman.
In terms of your depth as a whole, I think you guys have only signed 4 guys since the start of camp. Some of the other teams in the division have signed like 19 in terms of churning through the bottom of the roster. Does that just speak to the depth you had back and how good you feel about the 90 guys that you started camp with?
No, the depth we had back, and we really hadn't had any serious injuries, knock on wood. So a lot of teams sign guys when people go down, so they need the bodies. We didn't have to sign a lot of bodies, so we're comfortable and confident with the guys that we've been developing. So we just got to keep getting them to mature.
Can you, I don't know in terms of how many quarterbacks you'll play Friday, but I mean, if Wolford's a concern, can you get by with the other 2, or would you bring in a quarterback just to get you through that next preseason game?
We'll see how bad John is first. We'll probably just try and get by with 2 and have an emergency guy on standby. Bringing in another quarterback and giving him 2 or 3 days of practice to run the system we're running would be kind of unfair and just putting us behind the 8 ball, but we'll try to make do with what we got.
Thank you.
We have time for a few more. We'll go to Scott Reynolds. Scott, you're still muted.
There we go. Can you hear me now, Coach?
Yep.
You only had 16 carries last night, but you averaged 4.8 yards, which was a pretty efficient running performance. Could you just speak to what you've seen from the running game? Obviously, a lot more opportunities last week in Cincinnati, but a pretty healthy average with what you had last night with such few attempts.
We didn't have the ball as much. Obviously, we got to get the ball back for them to run some plays. Can't have the penalties, but for the most part, they're coming off the ball, and the running backs are making the cuts where they need to make them, and we're getting positive yardage.
Is Bucky Irving, is he the guy that you saw on tape at Oregon in terms of being able to slip tackles and be elusive and yet show enough toughness for a smaller guy to run between the tackles and get yardage?
He's the exact same guy we saw on tape. He usually always makes the first guy miss. He's very tough in between the tackles, and he's got a burst.
Appreciate it, Coach. Thank you.
Yeah.
JC Allen.
Coach, I just kind of want to get your opinion on Elijah Klein and how he's done so far. Played right tackle last night, but moved back into guard. And you look at kind of how he did last week, playing both guard positions. Is this someone you feel like you can kind of build around and behind the scenes, and hopefully have a player in the future?
Well, hopefully he's got to just keep developing. Obviously, moving him around last night was different for us with the injuries we had, but we're going to try to keep him in that guard and get his technique down and everything. If he can take some more reps and practice that tackle and become an emergency tackle, that'll be great as well. But we kind of like him inside right now.
We'll go one from Jenna and then one from Greg.
Hey, Coach, I know you were asked last night your thoughts on Chris Braswell and how he looked, and you said you kind of wanted to go back and watch the tape. After watching the tape, what are your thoughts on his performance and really the way he's performed in both preseason games?
He's had a good week last week. He had a good week of practice. There's some technical things we got to work on, hand placement and getting off the ball with his feet, correcting those type of things. But he's going to help us a lot this year. Very pleased with his performance.
Last question from Greg Allman.
Hey, Todd, of your kind of long-term injured guys, the guy's been out multiple weeks in practice, Whitehead, Shepard, Edmond, are any of those in play to come back and play in the final preseason game? And do they need that? Are any of those guys in a position of potentially not making the roster if they can't get back and show you what they can do healthy?
Well, the more you play and the more we get to see you, the better your chances are. I can't speak for when they'll be back. I'll check with the trainers on that. Right now, they're still day to day. If they can get some practices in this week, it'll look promising. And if they don't, it probably won't be.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. That's all we have. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.